Welcome everybody to Don't Get Your Hopes Up. Hashtag D Don't Get DGYHU. I don't know why I have to actually think about that before I say it every time. I am your host, Mike B, aka Fony, and I am joined here today by Josh Allen, aka Lore. How are you today, sir?
Digihu. It's pronounced Digihu.
Digihu. I mean, you actually, in your own tweet, you actually messed up the damn hashtag. So clearly, it's something that you have to think about. I think that's what's making me second guess. I was like, don't get your DGU, DGHU.
I meant to say, don't get hopes you're up.
Oh, you
No,
intentionally did that.
I intentionally suck.
That's what it was. That's right.
Yeah.
Welcome to Digihu, everybody. Special weekend edition.
Yeah.
Because I was gone on Thursday. I actually had it was actually pretty cool, like, get out of the house, get to the city, and just hang out with Lindsay.
The city.
The city, yeah. I mean, it's got a song, okay? It's got a song. The lights go out in the city. Come on, it's got its own song. So it's the city.
Yeah.
I thought it was really, really great, like small bar slash restaurant right next to BART, our Bay Area transit, like subway, whatever, which makes it super convenient for me to get to and get wasted and then just crawl back to the bus or to BART and then pass out until the train gets to the end of its road, which is basically where I live. It's perfect.
Get molested on the way. Yeah.
But yeah, when the driver comes around, it's like, sir, this is the end of the line. You got to get off. And I was like, and it just happens to be my spot.
That's convenient. You can literally just pass out. And
Exactly.
Then the driver will wake you up because he needs you to get off of his bus.
It's beautiful. It's perfect. And yeah, we were just like hanging out and drinking and just having a good time, whatever.
With the driver?
Yes, with the driver. Yep. And Lindsay. Everything kind of just went weird and sloshed because of how much alcohol was involved. But yeah, so that's what I did, and that's why we didn't have a show. I was too busy. I was doing fun things.
I played The Division.
Yes.
Which is a fun thing.
Which I paid dearly for, because when I came back last night, everybody was level 30. But me.
Not me. I'm still not level 30.
But you started late, though.
I did. I didn't actually play it until so I bought the gold edition, but I bought it through Amazon for that sick 40% discount or whatever it is. I don't think it's that much, but the discount that Amazon has now for new games, if you buy the physical copy. For some reason, it doesn't apply to digital copies, which is annoying. But
yeah.
It meant that I couldn't play it the night of release, where it launched at 9 p.m. Pacific, because I didn't have my copy yet. And then the next day it came in, and I was like, yeah, but I had to work all day. So I wasn't going to take the day off in case it showed up at 7 p.m. because that would just be a complete waste of a day off. So I finally got home. It was just sitting there on my porch, which I was like, okay, thanks, Amazon guy. You couldn't leave it at the office or anything, but whatever.
Just leave it out in the open. Video game.
Yeah, exactly.
Please take.
Yeah, and it was in just a little bag too, so normally I wouldn't be concerned, but it's been raining here a lot lately. So I was like, man, I'm glad it didn't rain today, which is again often not a concern in Orange County.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I finally got it, but then I couldn't play it that night because I was doing something. I don't remember what it was. So yeah, I didn't actually play until 2 days after launch.
Jeez.
And it was amazing because everybody was complaining constantly, oh, the servers are crashing all the time, and everybody's lining up to talk to this one guy. And I'm like, I log in. I think I've seen 2 other players because everybody else has already passed me.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm just this is actually really, really convenient. It's I get to do all these missions. I don't have to worry about other people. It's great. It's kind of funny. It kind of makes me wonder, should I, for every MMO from now on, should I just wait 2 days to start playing it?
A lot of people do that, actually. And it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I like the chaos of it. Right? Just being able to jump in and just seeing everything fall apart and all that stuff and then complain about it later. It's a lot. Yeah, that part's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, like it was pretty rough at first. But it did kind of clear up a little bit. It only took them like a few hours and occasional dropouts, whatever. Like it was nowhere near as bad as everyone really like said it was. Initially, sure, but like we were up and in, I think, like 30 minutes in or something like that, and then we had a couple of disconnects, and that was pretty much it. Like, I mean, maybe it's just because I've experienced, and I'm sure you have too, like way worse launches.
Yeah,
like this was a
I was
cakewalk.
there for the World of Warcraft launch in 2004.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't smooth, but it wasn't anything to like.
Yeah.
No one's gonna remember it later down the line unless you're
Yeah.
looking for things to talk about.
Yeah, like we're not gonna get, what was it? Like I already can't remember. It was like Romeo or something was the error that kept popping up or Dave or something like that. Mike. Yeah.
Yeah,
See,
that was
now
a
I'm gonna
common
remember it because that's hilarious. But it's not gonna be like an error 37 sort of thing where I say error 37 and then immediately you remember the whole issue that Diablo 3 had.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
Like-
synonymous with that eternally.
Yeah. No one's gonna be like, oh man, this is like error Mike all over again. I mean, I might.
Yeah,
Just to
yeah.
be a
I
dick.
figured that one's gonna stick around just because of me. Yeah, I'm sure. If there was like an error Josh, I'm sure I would milk that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But overall, it seemed. I mean, I like it. It's incremental loot. It's obviously a little bit grindy, but
Yeah.
but the world is, or the map is fairly large, especially given that you don't have vehicles to drive around.
Yeah.
Relatively diverse. The different climate and different weather changes and stuff, the weather effects that they have really add to the diversity, because you could be in an area that you are very familiar with, and then whiteouts, and you fucking have no idea where anything's at anymore because you
Yeah.
can't see anything.
Yeah, I actually do. Like, that's one thing I've really noticed about the Division is that when, like, the way that the game works, when extreme weather comes along, it's actually, like, it actually significantly impairs your ability to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like that. Like, when, if you remember way back in the days of yore, like, World of Warcraft patch 1.7 or something, where it was like Storms of Azeroth, and they added weather effects to the game, and everybody was super worried. This just means that people with higher end machines are going to have a worse time because they're not going to be able to see what's going on. And then everybody realized that actually this is a game in which every ability you use, especially at the time, you specifically target something and you don't have to worry about aiming. So
Yeah.
this is not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like it's interesting that with having to actually aim in the Division, 100% as you would expect, it becomes harder to actually see people and actually shoot them.
Yeah.
But they're having the same problem as well. Well, the NPCs aren't, but the other players that you face are having the same problem at the same time, which is cool.
Oh yeah, totally. Really the only issue I have is like, and I think this is like the reoccurring theme. It's like they put a lot of time into a lot of time and a lot of care into a lot of the major features of the game, and made them really cool. The map is really cool. Crafting totally works. The world is great. If the Dark Zone is anything like it was in beta, with obviously whatever tweaks, whatever, then that actually still worked. And that was pretty good. It's like the fine details that sometimes I'm just like, really? Like, and the biggest thing that stands out to me is like the voice. Like the voice and like some scopes and some like you can't ADS when you have a reflex or anything, like unless it's a scope, and it's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's not like in real life I'm not going to be able to look down the sights if I don't have a scope, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, it's like, and like, yeah, the VOs are pretty thin. Like, there's just, I've heard the same thing repeated so many times just walking around. If you stand in one spot, you're going to hear the
They
exact
got
situation.
Alex.
Oh my God, yes.
I've been so tempted to change my stupid Uplay name to Alex. Like, okay, so yeah, there's like levels of repetitive VO. There's you're standing next to, like, okay, let me think of some good examples here. So there's
Coughing in the med bay.
there's the expected repetitive VO, which is like Isaac in the game. So when he says, "Warning, you are now exiting a safe area," you're like, okay, yeah, he's gonna say the same fucking thing every single time, and that's fine because he's a computer. Like, this is This is acceptable. When you're standing near an NPC somewhere, or like you're running past an NPC out in the world, and they go, "Oh, hang on, I'm not your enemy," or whatever, and like they'll say that every time that happens, but you see them relatively infrequently, so that's not really that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And then you stand next to a weapons vendor for 3 minutes, going through your inventory, marking things that you want to sell as junk or whatever. And the guy's just going, "You can't buy from over there.
Yeah,
you can't buy from over there. You can't buy from over there." It's like, shut the fuck up. I heard you the first 800 times.
I know.
And then on a level above that is "They got Alex." Because why would you put a name like one?
I know,
like,
yeah.
Like if it was "They got him," then you're like, okay, yeah, I can hear "They got him" a whole bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
When it's "They got Alex," it's like, Jesus Christ, how many of you are named Alex?
Yeah, it's the it's like, but it's funny. It's like that's like not a huge deal, you know. Like it's the environment.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I wasted my money on this game because I'm listening to the same guy." It's annoying, yes, but
God damn it, Alex.
but overall, like the major features are really well done. And really well developed, and I don't care if they used, you know, the same concept they used for Assassin's Creed. I don't give a shit about the Assassin's Creed series. I really don't. So this thing is like 100% fresh for me, and I like it. I think it's a lot of fun. It's good.
Yeah, they definitely they took the concept of a near future MMO, and they really ran with it, and it does actually feel really good in that sense.
Yep.
And I have to I know a lot of people still get kind of hung up on the bullet sponginess of the bosses, and like bosses especially, but also even just generic NPCs. Like, I have to shoot this guy with 12 different bullets before he goes down, like that. I understand why that seems weird. I sort of approach this game from the thought of this is an MMO in which guns are shot, and not this is a shooter which has MMO elements.
Right.
So for me, that doesn't trip me up as much, and I feel like the combat in this MMORPG is so much better than other, I'm making finger air quotes right now, action focused MMOs.
Totally.
Like Terra or whatever, where the combat was you kind of have to point your camera in their direction. That's aiming, kind of.
You can't compare it to Terra though. That's a whole different.
Well, no, I'm just thinking like when you look at it from the perspective of this is an MMORPG which has aiming based.
Oh,
combat.
sure, yeah.
Like this is actually combat in which you are aiming a gun and it feels like actual gunplay.
Yeah, it does.
Versus something that took like a selecting a target option and just kind of made it a little bit more complicated, like Tabula Rasa or whatever. But yeah, game is fun. I have heard a lot of concerns about the end game, which is always going to happen. Like 100%. If you're one of those people that played the Division and got to the end game and went, everything is awful, man, this is your own goddamn fault. Because that's every single MMO after launch.
Yeah.
Because guess what? The end game is the thing that's had the least testing.
Yeah.
Especially with the Division, where they actually only, and I actually wanted to talk about this because I think it's interesting to think about now that we've gotten our hands on the final game to at least some extent. When they did the beta for the Division, every other MMO pretty much ever has given a lot more of the actual content in their betas than the Division did. The Division was literally only the first 8 levels.
Yeah, it was actually like a demo.
Yeah, it was like a demo. So like a ton of different systems were just not available, like the crafting or the perks or the talents. A lot of the actual game, like most of the missions were hidden. There was only like 3 missions in the open beta. And I don't know that I want to say that that's still the ideal way to go for an MMO, because I think for especially like what you consider a classic MMO like World of Warcraft, I still think it makes sense to test like everything so that when you actually launch, like the game is fairly stable. But that's for those MMOs that have this huge audience already.
Yeah.
For a game like The Division, which kind of has to prove itself coming out of the gate, I think it's cool that they kind of hid a lot of that actual content so that people weren't, I played it for 80 hours in the open beta and now there's nothing for me to do once the game is actually launched. I am impressed with how much the game has not had, how many issues they haven't had with as little beta testing as it actually got.
Mm-hmm.
Like things like the way the crafting system functions, it actually functions fairly well. The talents and perks actually function fairly well. And sure, there's going to be balance concerns, but that's all stuff that can be fixed once the game is actually live and the developers can pretty obviously see, okay, every single player is taking this talent, so we should
or a specific gun that Guns.
Exactly.
Guns had that was basically 50% crit with a perk that gives an additional X more percent crit, and every time he crits, he got healed and all this good. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and like that's the sort of thing that. There was a thread on Reddit where someone was like, how could they not have seen this? I can't understand how there's any possible way that they wouldn't think this is overpowered. And it's like, oftentimes what happens is, like, this is a random collection of stats that they randomly generated these weapons at some point, and that one just happened to randomly turn out to be really good. And when I'm not saying that the stats themselves on the gun are randomly generated in the game themselves. I'm just saying, like, when you go to create, you're trying to batch create 500 items for the final game. You're not going to sit there and on every single one of them be like, and this one we give this and this and this and this. You're going to start with something, like some sort of randomly generated baseline. And somebody probably looked at that and went, wow, that seems pretty good, and just left it at that. Because they're an item designer, not a QA tester.
Yeah.
So,
no one sat there and thought, well, what happens if I roll a perfect like set of perks? Yeah.
Yeah, and like it's hard for like a lot of issues that do crop up in end game content for a brand new MMO. They just come from designer A not knowing exactly how what designer B is currently working on is going to play into what designer A is currently working on. Because it's not like they finish all of the items and then say, okay, now that all of the items are done, let's create the dark zone. And now that the dark zone is done, let's create this other thing. Like what happens is you have a team of people working on the dark zone. You have a team of people working on items. You have a team of people working on combat. You have a team of people working on the grouping interface. Like all of this work is happening at the same time. Yeah, this is every single game.
This is why you see all these like disjointed things like Fallout, right? Like their GUIs are all like different. And in APB, all these systems are different. It's because of exactly this.
Yeah, everybody's working on it on the same time, and random designer A on team 3 may have thought that what random designer Q on team Banana was going to develop ends up being very different than what team Banana actually comes up with. So then it's like, oh crap, okay, we've been working on this thing and now we've accidentally made something that's super overpowered in this sense. Like maybe the team that was working on stats, like just looking at this gun as an example, maybe the team that was working on stats decided that crit needed to be a lot better than it was, so they just buffed crit across the board. But the guy that made items didn't think that crit was going to end up being 100% when he created this item that gave some healing off of crit. So all of a sudden now this other item is broken. And maybe this is an item that they made ages ago, and then they made all these other changes, and they forgot about this one little item that they put on this vendor. So
and this is the stuff that when you have
like
when you have hundreds of thousands of people playing your game, that's going to pop up and they're going to fix it. But it's understandable, and I think in terms of like the end game stuff, it's like that stuff that will get tested. Like Shizzle says, hard as fuck. Like Shizzle got in there, I guess he tried it, and he said that they were having difficulty completing it, if they even did. I don't even think they did, because it was so difficult. So, that could be a balance thing, because it wasn't fairly tested, or who knows.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like the big thing, and I was saying this even a few weeks ago when we were talking about it last. The big thing that's going to make or break a game like this isn't the state that it releases in at all. Like the state that, unless it releases in a completely broken and shitty way, and to the point that it makes headlines and everybody's perception of the game now forever is that it's broken and shitty. What will actually happen is the game will launch. People like me who are taking it kind of slow and make up the bulk of the actual player base, will start to kind of work our way through the game. Those people that get in immediately and go straight to endgame will find all these bugs And then what really makes or breaks the game is how well they can fix it by the time the rest of us get there.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I get to the Dark Zone at max level, the level 30 Dark Zone areas, I kind of expect that things will be in a pretty good state by the time I get there, because that's going to be like another week or something at this point. It's going to take a while for me to actually get there. And they've already been making changes in the game. They've already been, I guess they nerfed some stuff that I don't know what it is yet because I haven't gotten to it.
Yeah.
Which makes, that actually does give me some confidence, because that way I know that they're changing things based on initial feedback fairly rapidly. And that's what makes an MMO successful nowadays, or any game really successful nowadays, is that ability to get your game out there, know that shit's gonna break, and fix it when it does.
Yep.
So yeah,
So there you
I'm
go.
still very, very optimistic for the Division.
Yep. And by the time I come back from GDC, then everything will be nice and smooth. I guess.
Yeah. Where is GDC, by the way?
The Global Cooldown Conference is is taking place. It's here in San Francisco, actually,
Oh, okay, cool.
in the city.
The city.
Yeah, and that's actually that's where we're gonna be all next week.
Nice.
Have you ever been to a GDC?
No, I have not.
So the way that so GDC is different from other conferences because you basically have it's split, right? You have here's the big announcements, like the big game announcements conference, which is pretty much like E3, right? And then there's like the fan conferences, which is obviously all the PAXs, right? And several others. And then there's GDC, which is also, it's not just GDC anymore. It's actually GDC/VRDC. So virtual reality developers conference. Yeah, it's a new thing.
Is that where that picture of what's his name, the Facebook guy, like walking down an aisle while everyone around him is wearing a VR headset?
Yeah, that was there's a couple of like VR conferences that have been like kind of popping up left and right here, but I think that was from just one of the other conferences they had. Because
I'm sorry, but the idea of a VR conference is just inherently funny to me, because isn't the point of VR that you don't need this?
yeah, right. Soon.
Why don't they have the conference in VR?
Soon, yeah. Soon it'll be like that, I guess. Yeah.
Like at this point in time, the technology isn't there yet, but it's still funny to me.
Yeah. Yeah. What's great about this is where you go to if you want to get a job in the industry, or if you want to meet developers and get more. A lot of it is very tech focused. So you're going to get game announcements, you're going to get all that stuff, but a lot of it is focused on the, here's a tech demo of something in progress. You're going to have some indie devs there as well as all your AAAs. But for the most part, it is focused around working in the industry and the tech behind the industry stuff. So like this year, that's why they have VRDCs, because they're going to have a whole bunch of virtual reality stuff that they're going to have on demo. So you can basically go and check it out. And it's going to be like tech demo stuff, like here's a space game, or here's, a job simulator or whatever it's called, and all that stuff. So it's going to be fun. The best part about it, though, for those of you guys who are looking to get into the games industry, a ticket to get into GDC is like $1,200 or something. Unless you're press, a ticket to get in is pretty expensive. And the average person obviously is not going to be able to shell out money for that, and then shell out money for a place to stay in San Francisco. It's usually pretty freaking expensive.
Yeah. If you're trying to get a job in the gaming industry, it's probably not a good idea to spend 2 months' income on going to a conference.
Yes, but if you can manage to at least get down here, and you find a place that's relatively cheap to stay, the best thing to do, especially at GDC, is don't even bother going to the floor. You can hang out in the lobby area, which is usually pretty bustling. It's pretty busy. And you can hang out at...
That's where everybody is that couldn't afford a ticket.
Yeah. And then you can hang out at the W, which is a hotel right across the street. The lobby there is usually just jam-packed with devs and just people in the industry all day. And it's a bar. The Hilton lobby, another bar, and just wide open area. Everybody, ends up congregating there, and you end up meeting a lot of people and all that. And I mean, I can't tell you how many meetings I've had. It's funny. I will go to GDC, and like 50% of my meetings happen in hotel rooms because they don't even want to pay for a place inside GDC.
Yeah.
And so they'll just get a hotel, and that's where they'll be. Like, I'm setting something up here with the developers of Rive, Two Tribes. They made Tokitori, and they're going to be set up in a hotel room, and that's just, it's just the way it is. Like, that's where you go to if you want to get in the industry. Like, you could go to GDC without actually going to GDC.
Yeah. Well, and like you think about like every conference nowadays, it seems like has some crazy ass wargaming party, where the wargaming, I say war. For clarity, I mean wargaming the company, not wargaming the abstract concept. But like, I don't know if GDC has one, but every PAX, every like E3, everything along those lines, there's like some sort of crazy wargaming party that happens where they rent out an entire hotel or something somewhere, and they have an open bar, and like they drive a tank into a aircraft carrier or something. I don't know. Like it's always some sort of ridiculously over the top party. And the reason they do that is because it makes a huge spectacle. It gets lots of people there. It furthers their brand, and it makes people interested in their products because, wargaming, the World of Tanks, I haven't thought about that game in a while. Maybe I should play it. But also because it's still probably cheaper than having a booth at E3. Like,
yeah.
It is expensive for these companies to actually do that.
And check this out. So because we're so close to GDC, there's a lot of events that are already happening, right? When I was hanging out with Lindsay, we actually caught wind of this party that was going on at a bar. It wasn't really a party. It was more just kind of like a get-together, pre-GDC primer or something. I went there and had a few drinks, and I basically bullshat with a ton of people, and I walked out with a ton of cards. So here I have Roger, who's developing a game called Shard, and he told me the whole concept, and it seems pretty interesting, but he says he's got a 2-year timeline to deliver that. Julius, who works for Red Links, he actually works with Trials and all that, so we had a nice little conversation. I got his card. I talked to Jimmy, who works for Humble, and he helps put together and support all of the Humble products that they put out. And I talked to my buddy Warren, who works for Warner Brothers, WB Games, and it's like, I mean, we just happened to come across a party days before GDC, and already like there's networking going on. So that's how you get into this industry, is you go through, you meet these people, and like this guy Roger, who's working on this game called Shard, it's like he said he has a 2-year timeline, but hey, maybe in a year I could get some kind of an exclusive or something like that, or I could work with him or kind of see what it is that he's doing, and something will come of that. Who knows? Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that you do. It's fun.
Totally. Like a lot of times I see this a lot now that I'm on the community management side of thing, dealing with what the industry calls influencers nowadays, which is just sort of this generic term for, do they do stuff that people pay attention to? But they're like, if you're an influencer, then you're like a streamer or a YouTuber. So you're famous, but not so famous that we start calling you a celebrity.
There you go. Yeah,
is kind of how it works out. Like, Summit is a very high profile influencer. I don't think anyone would really call Summit a celebrity unless you put like the word online in front of it or something.
Right.
Like, sure, he's an online celebrity. He's a Twitch celebrity. He's not Morgan Freeman. But he's still like a really, really high profile influencer. Anyway, what you see happen a lot with influencers is that sort of like getting in on the ground floor. Like a lot of people will see someone like, I'll use Day9 as an example, because he was one of the guys who was kind of around when this whole thing really started to take off. And a lot of people looked at what Day9 was doing and went, oh man, I want to do that too. So they would start doing their own like daily shows about StarCraft. And it's like, okay, listen, nobody's going to watch your show instead of Day9's show. Because you're doing the exact same thing. But what would happen is you would see people like, I don't remember his name now, but there was a guy who did a lot of similar stuff for League of Legends at the time. and he started to kind of become famous for that. I think he ended up stopping eventually because I haven't seen anything from him in a while. But there was like JP had his State of the Game podcast,
Yep.
and then someone else made a State of the League podcast for League of Legends. These were in the days where League of Legends was still this tiny scrappy thing compared to StarCraft.
Yeah. Yes.
The days of old.
Kind of funny thinking about that now.
Yeah, exactly.
Scrappy game.
Or like you'll see people who like Forecourt Jester, who is always kind of on the fringe of like League of Legends themed stuff, but Heroes of the Storm came along and he was like, okay, this is my chance, and he went after Heroes of the Storm, and now he's like casting a lot of major Heroes of the Storm events and stuff. Like that's kind of what you want to do, is sort of get in on the ground floor, new stuff that's coming out, not necessarily sitting on a product that's been out. Like at this point, if you want to be the next big World of Warcraft streamer, you kind of have to wait for Towley and Soda Poppin and Bajira and Sea-Doo and Venruki to all get bored and go someplace else.
True.
Like,
yeah.
that's a saturated market at this point. But what was I saying?
Talking about influencers.
But maybe if you're someone who's had some small minor successes in the World of Warcraft online gaming space, and either you come up with some crazy new idea, like there's this guy named Rudism that we've been kind of freaking out about at Blizzard lately, because he's leveling a character using DDR pads. And it's kind of amazing. Yeah. And he's been getting a bunch of traction on sites like Polygon and Kotaku and stuff as well. So you can either come up with some crazy idea like that, and that's your thing now, and people will eventually get bored of that, but you can kind of maybe pivot off of that and do something cool.
Oh, like Benefits. Benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, like him. Like if you have a shtick.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can say, all right, I was a moderately popular World of Warcraft streamer, and now Blade and Soul comes along or something, and you manage to talk to somebody at Blade and Soul who, or at NCSoft, who was like, okay, yeah, it's going to be way too expensive for us to grab Towley or somebody and pay him to do stuff for our game, but your audience is okay, and we can sort of take you in, and even if you don't become their Towley at that point, it's still, that's kind of the ladder that you work up.
Yeah.
Is you get a good audience with something eventually, and then that's your audience, and you stick with that, and it doesn't have to necessarily be the game that you started with.
Yep.
This was a weird trip down my own thought processes, so I apologize for how rambly that was. But
on this show,
never. But that was weird for me on this show. Even. Like that was a ramble and a half. Basically, TLDR, everything Mike said.
Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. So,
do you need some help?
I can't do it, man.
Okay.
You know what it is? I don't think it's that I can't do it. I feel like if you weren't here, I could do it. You know, like I could step up, right? But you're here, and I feel like I might disappoint you, man.
All right, well, here, hang
go
on.
for it. No, go on. No.
I'm thirsty. I'm gonna go grab some water, and you could.
No, I can't do it. No.
Okay, fine.
It's all you, buddy.
Okay. I am really thirsty though. I can wait. So speaking of Game Developers Conference, by which I mean speaking of GDC, by which I mean speaking of GCD, by which I mean speaking of the global cooldown, by which I mean speaking of something that is incurred when you use an ability, by which I mean speaking of something that you use to kill things in video games, everything is dead or dying. By which I mean Carbine just laid off a ton of people, and that's actually really sad.
That's actually really sad.
Like,
okay.
I get to this point and I'm immediately like, oh, holy shit, actually I'm making a joke at the moment about a whole ton of very talented people losing their jobs. Maybe I should dial this one back a little bit.
Yeah, man. So Carbine laid off a ton of people. They actually ceased to develop their Chinese version of the game, right?
Yeah.
And obviously that would result in, I mean, you keep people on board if you're going to be expanding. If you're not going to be expanding, then you obviously need to kind of trim a little bit. I heard it was a lot of people. Actually, I
Yeah,
think it's even maybe I don't know if it's actually reported anywhere that it's how many people it was, but I've heard over 100.
yeah. I've heard, and I don't know how accurate this is, but just from the handful of people that I know that either are at Carbine or know people who are at Carbine, it sounds like it was actually around 3/4 of their staff.
Yeah, I mean,
Like it was
here's
substantial. Like it was one of those you come in the next day and it's empty sort of layoffs.
yeah, they said that they're going to continue developing a major content push that's happening with WildStar, and then they're going to continue basically running with it for a while. I don't know what that means for the game. Obviously, it's not good.
Yeah.
There's no way you're going to spin this where it's like, this is great for the player base. No, it's not. Unless more people start to, come around to the game and checking it out, which is probably not going to happen with news like this because people are going to view it as this is the end for this game. Yeah, man, that's weird, and it fucking sucks. Like, it just sucks when things don't pan out the way you want to when you put all this time and work into a game,
Yeah. Yeah, and like I hate to be narcissistic, but like this is and has been NCSoft's sort of MO for a while. Is like, and I don't think they do it maliciously.
No,
But
no, no.
what happens is they have a development company that they sink a whole bunch of money into, and they get them all to produce a game, but they're not nearly as interested in supporting the live game once it's actually out. Just the way that their marketing strategy works. They don't think about things like, let's develop an expansion for this game. Like to NCSoft, and I've never worked there. I don't really know much of anyone at NC. The only person I know at NCSoft at this point is Bashiak, because that's where he went, and I have not talked to him at any length at all about how things are at NCSoft. So
Yeah.
I'm just speculating based off of the. Basically, don't treat this as some sort of weird insider knowledge. Everyone that's listening, this is just my speculation. They seem like their model is develop an MMO, release it, ride the wave as long as you can, do something else. Not, and that's very different from like the World of Warcraft model, which is develop an MMO, release it, start working on an expansion, start working on
Right.
on content patches, etc. Keep subscribers as much as possible, and then come out with an expansion to get back to people that you inevitably lose. Like that's kind of the Blizzard model for sustaining an MMO. NCSoft doesn't really seem interested in that post-launch period of let's develop more content, let's put out expansions, let's get people coming back to our game, so much as they are interested in, all right, well, this one didn't take off into a far and away success immediately, so let's start working on something else entirely.
Yeah.
And that's why, and they're a publisher, so it makes sense. Like that's why they have Blade and Soul and WildStar, because why not? You have two different MMOs. One of them is newer than the other one, and Blade and Soul releasing. Blade and Soul's doing all right. I guess we don't need WildStar anymore, so let's cut back that development team quite a bit.
Yep.
And it sucks. And I don't agree with that overall strategy at all. Like I just don't think that that's the way to run an MMO and have it be successful.
So I kind of differ in opinion. I think the concept sucks. I think from a business standpoint, I think it's if the game doesn't. So first off, they're supporting MMOs, which at this point, give me a break, right?
Yeah, that's definitely fair.
But and this is the way we did things at ZAM, which is kind of what made us successful for so long. Is we would bring on people that you work on a project, whatever that project is. It could be it could be just Wowhead, right? you come on, you're a Wowhead developer, and then what we did was, hey, let's get you trained on this other site that we're building, and that way, if something were to happen to WoW or to whatever site we're building, you can just move over into this other project because you were familiar with it. You're familiar with the platform. You're familiar with how we work, our own office ecosystem or whatever you want to call it. And it's a system that works. I think that's where they're kind of dropping the ball. Is the publishers are picking up these studios with no real out for them. So instead of saying, hey, we have a whole bunch of projects that we could shuffle people around and save all these jobs, they're just saying, hey, well, see you later, and they just lay a bunch of people off. And that's where I think they could probably change things up. In terms of them, not supporting a game because they don't think it's going to be profitable, I think that's fair. It's like they're not going to take money to something they don't feel is going to be successful. Unfortunately, it also sets a precedent that they're not going to support an MMO after launch, which also
Yeah.
shoots them in the foot in the future because people will see that like, oh, another NCSoft game. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
going to be great at the beginning, but then they're not going to support it, so don't even bother.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying. I think that there is I think there are ways to make sure that that's profitable. And like you're saying, like when people when you pick up a new MMO nowadays, like I was just saying earlier, I don't really care what the Division is like at launch. I want to know that the Division in a few months is going to still be fun, because I don't want to the amount of time, like MMOs are a time sink game, and time sinking can be fun as long as you know that you're not completely wasting your time. If I'm going to sink a ton of time into the Division and then not play it in a month from now, it's going to feel like a huge waste of time. I don't even care about the $60 or whatever I spent on it at that point. I care about the amount of time I've spent playing this instead of something else that I could now be having more fun with. So that's kind of what I was saying before, is just I feel like this general attitude of we're going to launch the game and then ignore it unless it turns out to be some huge far and away success prevents it from being that huge far away success.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's obviously it's a tough decision overall.
Yeah, for sure.
And someone's gonna be looking at the numbers and not the people. And I just really wish they had a better system in place where they could just, instead of laying people off, they can maybe mitigate some of that, because you're gonna lose somebody, sure. Doing some a little bit, some downsizing, but squeeze them into another game. And if they don't want to get in that game, then just okay, well then you could leave if you want to.
I've heard rumors, and again, this is completely unsubstantiated, but I have heard rumors that Carbine is working on something else, and it should come as no surprise to anyone. If you're a game development company, especially a game development company at NCSoft, you need to have another title to work on. The issue is you can't necessarily take, I don't know, 150 employees and just say, okay, you guys go work on this other game instead now, if that other game is at the point where you're still like drawing concept art and trying to come up with ideas of what the game even is. Like when I'm pretty sure this is all fairly well-known stuff at this point, so I don't feel too bad talking about it, but like when Titan was canned, and they decided, okay, let's make Overwatch instead, they did not put all of those guys on Overwatch immediately. Like the Titan team did not just become the Overwatch team. A lot of them did, but the majority of those people, I believe, and I don't know the exact numbers on this at all, so I'm just guessing, but I believe the majority of the people that were working on Titan at the time got filtered back into other development teams, because fortunately, Blizzard is a company where we have 6 fucking franchises going all at once. We're a little bit crazy, but it was like, okay, we can take this these 50 people or whatever, and we'll put 20 of them over here on WoW, and we'll put 10 of them on Diablo, and we'll put 5 of them on Hearthstone, and you can split people around like that. NCSoft doesn't have, or excuse me, Carbine doesn't have 6 franchises that they can spread people around like that on.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and NCSoft only really has 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, we Blade and Soul, Ion, Lineage, WildStar, and that's pretty much the gist.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of those development, like the Lineage development team, is not even in America for the most part. So, like you can't take 20 people and say, okay, now your job is translating this, especially if those people don't even know Korean or whatever. So, yeah. So yeah, it's tough, and I can totally understand why, if NCSoft looks at WildStar and say, okay, this isn't working, they would just walk away from it. I think every MMO deserves one expansion. I think that you cannot call an MMO a failure until you've put out an expansion for it and have had that flop. I can understand why it would seem very risky, but I think expansion packs are such a strong revitalization method for a game that it seems dumb to straight up cancel something or straight up like lay off a whole ton of people instead of coming up with an expansion for it. And maybe there is an expansion coming for WildStar that I don't know about.
Yeah, they said there's a piece of major content or something coming, but I don't know that that's necessarily going to save everybody.
Yeah, you really a content update doesn't really hit that niche. You kind of need this, like, this is a new release for this game and we're revitalizing. So what I'm thinking of as I'm saying this is I'm thinking of Diablo 3, where Diablo 3 came out and a whole ton of people got it for free because they were playing the annual pass on World of Warcraft anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But B, it had a lot of issues. It was really, really fun, and then you hit the end game, and then it was really, really not.
Yep.
And so that game was really, really suffering. But Blizzard decided, okay, let's release an expansion for it, and with this expansion, we're going to fix every single problem that there is in this game. And that's what they did. And Reaper of Souls came out, and all of a sudden, Diablo 3 went from this game that a whole bunch of people were kind of tired of and weren't really interested in playing anymore into this ridiculously successful thing that that now people were canceling their WoW subscriptions to go play Diablo 3 instead, which is there's probably some interesting data to look at there.
Yeah. Whoops.
Yeah.
Don't make the game too fun, guys.
Yeah, I mean they did buy Reaper of Souls, so I guess
of course
that counts for something. But yeah, like it took this game from being kind of whatever and something that everybody had stopped even thinking about, and then put it right back in front of everybody again, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, this game is actually great now." Mm-hmm. And I could easily see, especially with how much people loved WildStar at first, I could easily see something like that happening for WildStar. So yeah, it's really, really sad that NCSoft has decided to go the "this isn't working, lay a bunch of people off" approach instead of the "this isn't working, what can we do to turn it back around" approach.
Yep. Speaking of games going away. So yeah.
You're not even trying.
I'm not even trying. EQ Next is canceled. Yeah. But that was tied into the layoffs and all that stuff that happened when we went from SOE to Daybreak to losing a bunch of people and just all kinds, splitting up titles, and with Hizzy being 2 games, Just Survive and King of the Kill. All these changes are happening at Daybreak. And what's weird is, like, a lot of the people that I know that work for SOE and Daybreak, they're still there. So they're obviously doing a decent job shuffling people around. Unfortunately, the people part of the EQ franchise, they kind of got hurt in terms of, like, their staffing. They lost a lot of people. So what was funny is when they made the announcement that EQ Next was canceled, I saw a lot of people that were like, well, actually, the media spin on it was like, "Oh my God, it's canceled. And I was like, wow, that's sensationalist as fuck, because nobody is surprised.
Yeah.
Like, nobody was thinking, yeah, they're going to totally work on EQ Next. Like, really? No. They let go of, like, a lot of the people that were, like, the heart and soul of the EQ franchise. Not all, but I mean, a lot of them. There's no way that they're going to continue to build an MMO or anything on the EQ outside of Landmark. They're not going to build anything else on it.
Yeah. Yeah, like, again, this is just a rumor that I heard, but you hear a lot of these sorts of rumors working inside the game industry because everybody kind of knows each other or knows somebody who knows somebody, etc. I heard a rumor that they had literally not done any development on EQ Next for like 6 months already.
I'm sure. Oh, yeah.
Like, they just hadn't touched it since the Daybreak split.
They just didn't want to rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. Like, yeah, they're just kind of keeping it. This is me speculating at this point, but they were just kind of keeping it around as a maybe we'll want to do this, maybe not, and then they decided to focus 100% on H1Z1. And I guess actually the H1Z1 split is actually going pretty well for them. I see lots of people playing King of the Kill now, so maybe that's working really well for them. I'm not sure, but either way, whatever happened, they decided EQ Next was no longer a priority for them.
Right.
And eventually decided to say, you know what, we're just not going to do this thing. And it almost like I feel like this is a decision that they made a while ago, and they figured we should probably tell people.
Oh yeah, totally. And it's funny. Usually, here's what's weird about all of these like layoffs and game shutdowns and everything that we're hearing about this week. It's like usually this stuff happens on GDC week. Like usually it happens or during a convention. You know, like I'm actually surprised that somebody at NCSoft wasn't like, hey, let's just wait until, Monday or Tuesday when all the announcements, and then like, announce it and slide under the radar. That's typically what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, this is a strategy that we use at Blizzard a lot. A lot of times you announce some bad news knowing that there's some good news coming later because you want people to think about, there's this bad news, oh, this is really bad, we're so sad, for a couple of days. Let that whole thing pass. And people kind of go, oh, I'm sad, and then kind of get over it. And then announce your good news.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be like, here's some good news, this is really exciting, and then a week later, also we canceled this other project. And like if you're gonna, if say for the sake of argument, I don't think this is going to happen, but say for the sake of argument that Daybreak was planning on announcing an entirely new product at GDC.
Right.
Maybe they're coming out with another Overwatch clone or something. I don't know. And they wanna announce something. It's H1Z1 The Division Edition. And in fact, actually, maybe they want to talk a whole bunch about their survival mode changes for H1Z1 at GDC or something. And they want to talk about what they're doing with that half of the H1Z1 franchise now. Just theoretically.
Yeah.
Say that's the case. Say that's what's happening. They don't want to go, we're doing all this stuff for H1Z1. Isn't this amazing? Also, we canceled EQ Next, because then all anybody's going to talk about
is the cancellations.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's all that's going to circulate in press sites. That's all that's all that anyone's going to be thinking about at that point. Whereas if they say, "Oh, we're not working on EQ Next, sorry," and check out all this new stuff for H1Z1, then like whatever you say last is what people talk about. So it is not surprising at all to see this, and really this just makes me think maybe they have some big announcements coming at GDC.
Interesting.
Maybe not.
Yeah, we'll see.
But maybe it was one of those things where they're like, we can say this now, and then GDC will happen, and everyone will forget about it. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the other thing that shut down, Yahoo Games.
Man.
This one hits.
14-year-old me is so sad right now.
I don't think I played anything on Yahoo Games ever.
I used to play a bunch of stuff.
Maybe. God.
So they had their Scrabble clone that I played a bunch of. And it was also the only website I could find that had online euchre, which
clearly
it's a Midwest card game. It's basically a Michigan card game. I think they play it in Wisconsin and Ohio too. But it's a Midwest card game, and no one else plays it anywhere. And I always thought it's really, really fun. It's one of those games that you figure out, and once you figure it out, you feel like you're better than everyone else because you know how to properly, I know in this situation I should do this exact thing, and it's there's no meta shift at all in this game. It's just cards.
There's no meta shift.
Yeah, but that was a game that I played a lot on there. I'm slightly sad to see. Oh, I used to play pool a lot too. They had a actually fairly decent pool.
I mean, I probably play backgammon or something dumb on there. Probably that's not backgammon, or maybe even chess. That sounds like something I would have done, or possibly Scrabble. But other than that, then this is years ago. Kind of going through their site and everything. I understand Yahoo's not doing great. People talk about Flickr being done, and people talking about, and obviously Yahoo Games is done, and it's I could already see just on the surface, it's they don't have the platform anymore. They had a mobile games initiative going, but obviously that didn't pan out because they don't have a platform. Look at the platforms: Google Play, iOS, right? The Apple Store.
Yeah.
Platform, Facebook as a platform. Yahoo does not have a platform for distribution. because they themselves are no longer a viable platform as Yahoo. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone, if you mention Yahoo, people are like, "What's Yahoo?" Right? I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah, they don't have a platform for it, and they're trying
Yeah.
to, sell these games, and it's just, yeah, I could totally see it. Like, who's gonna play these games? Like, the people that are
Yeah.
playing these games, they're dying of old age, as time progresses.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
like in 2002, the market for Yahoo Games was like people who worked at a job that allowed them to have a computer and wanted to slack off.
mm-hmm.
That was that market. There wasn't. There were probably some people that were like just sitting at home, like old people would sit at home and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna play Euchre on Yahoo Games because it's really fun," and that's fine. But the biggest market, I think, was probably the sort of like I say, like the board secretary sort of market. And nowadays, that person has a smartphone, and they play games on that instead because they don't have to worry about an IT department showing up and saying, "Excuse me, you've been playing pool for 4 hours," because they're not tracking what's happening on their smartphone.
On your phone, yeah, on your phone.
So, yeah.
The other one, God, it's funny. There's so many closures. I actually forgot about Lionhead, which is funny because I was a huge Fable guy, for Fable 1, I think 2. Yeah, I can't believe how many closures and just things have happened this past week. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So yeah, obviously Fable Legends is done.
Yeah.
There have been a couple people on my Twitter feed who have played it, and they're like, "Well, I guess that means there's no NDA," and they're like, "The game was actually fun." They're like, "It was a good game," but yeah,
I do feel like to an extent, whenever a game gets canceled, you're going to get a whole bunch of people talking about how actually it was really fun. Just because that's kind of what you want to say is you want the
fair enough.
This was a terrible choice, and the people that don't like the game are just going to be like, well, saw that coming, and that's going to be that. Unless the game was legit, like, just fucking awful. In which case
people would say, they weren't going anywhere with it.
Yeah, but still, like, Fable Legends, I mean, they actually were going to have a talk at GDC. I'm assuming that's not going to happen now. But they were going to have a talk at GDC about how Fable Legends was, like, the future of gaming or something. And it's definitely very, very sad. And, like, Lionhead, there are so many games that are Lionhead games that you kind of don't think about anymore, and maybe their problem was just marketing or something, because like Black and White was a game that really pushed the envelope ages ago. Fable, obviously, when Fable came out, that was a game that really pushed the "I'm going to change the world around me" angle, because it was one of the first games to really pitch that as its major thing, was you can be anything you want in this world. And then when you actually play it, it was more like, okay, you can be anything that you want as long as you stay in these areas and do these exact things. But still, like, that was the time, right?
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
You do evil shit, and like you walk through town, and people are like, "Whoa!" and they're like scared of you. It's like that stuff was awesome. Your character changes. That was all fresh and new.
Yeah, and like you look at games like SWTOR, where the more dark side you get, the more your character like actually looks dark side. And Fable was, I doubt it was the first game to do that, but it was certainly the first one that really got that concept out there and really like stuck in people's heads about that sort of thing. Black and White was a game where it was one of the first games where you have something that actually learns from you and it mimics your actions, and you had this because you had the creature, and the creature would do, like, you could teach the creature to throw its poop at villagers. And I'm pretty sure that's what 99% of people actually did in Black and White.
I hope so.
But like, that was they've created so many of these games over the years that really pushed the envelope, that losing Lionhead Studios, like, regardless of what Fable Legends was going to be, this is a studio of really, really intelligent, smart, ahead of their time individuals. And it sucks to lose something like that in the gaming space, especially nowadays where we're just coming out with re-releases of re-releases over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yes.
And like every single MMO nowadays, with the exception of WildStar, which we were just talking about how well that's going, has to be some sort. It has to be licensed or a sequel or something like that. Like even World of Warcraft is in an already existing franchise, because Warcraft 3 and the Frozen Throne were very popular. So let's make an MMO based off of Warcraft. Let's make an MMO based off of Tom Clancy. Let's make an MMO based off of whatever else. It's off of Star Wars, off of anything really. Look at Blade and Soul. Let's make an MMO based off of every other MMO.
Pretty much. God, I'm doing like a Google search here. It's like, do we miss any others? I feel like this was the week. I mean, this is like a terrible week. Like all these closures, all these games that they're not going to happen. Maybe that's
like we were talking earlier about how you pitch your bad news at a time when there's other news going on. Maybe every game development studio is just kind of going, oh shit, Lionhead laid people off. All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. Dogpile.
Yeah.
Jesus. Is there something else like a more lighthearted we could talk about now? Like, can we spin this the other direction? What else is happening?
Yeah. What happy things have happened? I'm sad now.
Riot did pick up the Stonehearth guys.
Yeah. I actually wanted to talk about that.
That was a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I took full advantage of that.
I saw all of you like, hey, everybody, here's a sneak preview of Riot's upcoming new game.
Their first new game since League of Legends or whatever. I already know what it was.
Yeah.
But, that was. So that was not something that I think anybody saw coming.
Yeah.
At all. So Riot picked up Radiant. Which is they're located in they're in Los Altos, and they're an indie studio. They're working on so they're making a game called Stonehearth, which is a lot of fun. Stonehearth, super fun game. It's just like it's kind of like a simplified what's it called, Banished, right? Little management, little city builder. Very, very cartoony looking and just a lot of fun. Then they're working on another game. What was it called? Like a robot. It was like a robot fighting game or something. I can't remember the name of it right now. But that was something that was in development. They canceled that project, and they're going to be Rising Thunder. Yeah, Rising Thunder, I think. And they are going to be moving all those resources and basically focusing on whatever it is that Riot has planned, which I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah. I mean, people have been wondering for quite some time now, like, when is Riot going to come out with something else? Because it's obvious, like, if you pay attention to their job listings, if you pay attention to what they've been talking about, it's obvious that they have more than just League of Legends in mind for the League of Legends universe. Mm-hmm. Like, they have story developers, and I would be surprised if they needed an entire story department to come up with the stuff that goes in the, like, character bio section in League of Legends, because that's like 3 paragraphs. It's not really, you don't need much to go in there. So for them to have an entire story development section, to me it really seems like I forget the name of the overall universe in League of Legends, but it seems like they're really trying to push that in other directions in the near future.
Yeah.
So them picking up an indie development studio is really exciting. I don't know if it means that their existing project is going to get canceled and they're going to work on something else. I don't know if it means they're going to reskin it as League of Legends themed instead of being its own thing. I don't know.
I think this is these devs somehow came into the target of, like, the sights of somebody that's pretty high up in Riot, and somebody recognized them as being a compatible collection of developers and a compatible studio with Riot's theme and Riot's overall systems. And then they were like, you know what, like, we do want to have another project we want to work on. Let's just absorb these guys. Because so you've obviously been to Riot's studios.
I haven't actually.
You haven't?
Nope.
Oh wow. So
I know a bunch of people there, and I keep meaning to make it over there sometime, but I still haven't made it.
So here's the thing, Riot. I haven't been to their new one, but their old one, it was like there was like 4 floors or whatever. It was like every single floor was just jam packed with shit being worked on. Sometimes when you go to a studio, I've been to plenty of these where you go and you're just like, all right, clearly this section is for like people that do fucking nothing really productive. Like these guys, they're not doing anything. Like they have a bullshit job, right? Uh, at Riot, as I'm walking around, it's like everybody was doing something. There was a whiteboard in the center of like every block, every section of cubicles, and they were working on something. They were walking around, they were doing stuff. I didn't get the feeling that there was really a pocket or a corner of people that just had bullshit jobs. I know a lot of people that work at Riot, and I can't tell. Like, none of them have like what I would consider to be a, oh yeah, well you don't really need somebody to do that, or something like that. Like you don't only do that. You probably do all this other stuff. Like
I knew a couple. I knew someone at one point that had like a really one of those titles that sounds like you don't actually do anything, which was like media specialist or something. I'm like, the fuck is a media specialist? But then they got like a promotion, and now they're like manager of some like department or something like that. So like, okay, I guess you do actually do something.
yeah,
something
if you get a promotion
useful
from it.
Yeah.
So I think it makes sense for them to, like, someone who was like, there's no way we can, take a sizable chunk of our team and have them work on something else completely different when, they could talk to these guys who maybe they already have an idea and they pitch it to Riot. And they're like, this is what we do. We think that this will fit in with, whatever it is that you guys are working on, or it's a new IP or whatever it is. And they're just like, good, done. Like, here is a team that they know how to work together. We don't have to worry about partitioning off, splitting up other teams to make it happen. Obviously, Riot is working on other projects besides League. I think we've all heard little things here and there. They have all the stuff that they're working on, but that doesn't. You wouldn't want to dismiss. Here's a team that already has everything together, and we can build something with them. I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Yup.
Well, good. That was a happy one. I think that was good.
Yeah, I got one other thing that we can end on for a happier note.
What's that?
I can give a little update on how things are going with my card game.
Ooh,
my tabletop game.
Yeah.
So I've been doing a lot of thinking about the sort of setting for the game recently, and what I want it to be like in terms of like the actual world, because even though like it's a pen and paper game, basically it's good to have a world that such a game is set in, because that actually influences a lot of game design in different ways. So I've kind of started to look at this in the I've hit on an interesting spin of the steampunk idea. So there's like everybody kind of knows what steampunk means. It's like, okay, yeah, Industrial Revolution plus magic plus orcs, right? Like that's kind of the general idea for it.
Sure, yeah.
So the concept that I'm looking at this from is, nowadays, if you were to go back and look at something that someone wrote in, like, say, the 1600s, and say, yeah, like, there was a dragon over here, because, like, people believed in dragons back then, and, like, all the stuff that people believed was actually true back in medieval days, and so on. Like, there's a wizard, they know how to do wizard shit. And then you fast forward it to today, where obviously we've figured out what a lot of that actually was. Like, okay, it wasn't actually a giant, it was just a really tall guy, because this is Europe, and up in the Norse regions there were really tall people.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
This wasn't actually a dwarf, this was just someone who was French in that time, because the French were pretty short in that period of time, and so on. Like, seriously, go to some of the old buildings and look at those doors and tell me that those people were not like tiny. But anyway, so the idea is that we have this universe in which magic does exist, but it's not like in the magic sense of like incantations or whatever, like the pseudo-spiritual sense. It's actually been figured out by science at this point, in that there are these energies that are everywhere that you can direct into something, and you can actually create a little device that will cast magical spells, etc., etc. And then where you kind of go from that and like starting to think about what the world is like built around that makes a lot of interesting differences where like if we had the ability to like cast a fireball at something, would gunpowder have been developed? Like what
okay.
what other sides of
Yeah.
things would not have been created as a result?
It
If
would be
you
impractical to create something that it would be just that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Like if you didn't need electricity to create light, then would the computer exist? Like all these sorts of things. So while there's this sort of scientific magic that's create like magic is just an energy source at that point, and when you have an energy source that functions in this certain way, then you don't need to develop these other energy sources as much. And it makes a lot of interesting differences. So the way I've kind of ended up with this universe now is that everything is a lot more isolated. Everything is a lot more warlike, which is good for a game like this because it's easier to get, like, you don't need a gun to cause a whole bunch of gun violence because you can just put this little thing together with any random assortment of these very easily accessible materials. And now you've created a bomb like this. So you have this environment in which crazy shit happens all the fucking time. And it's really, really fun. I obviously don't want to spoil
Divulge
too much of it
Yeah.
at this point in time. Yeah. And I don't want to, I obviously, there's a lot that I still have to think about, but it's still fun that it's fun for me that I've kind of gotten to the point where I feel like I have this good sense of where things are, and then I can start to do things like flesh out character classes and stuff based on that. Like I have this idea for a sort of like tinkerer class that creates all these different devices, and maybe they have a chance for them to blow up, maybe they don't. Maybe you can specialize in different directions so that like you can be the tinkerer that goes for all the really, really risky, high risk, high rewards sort of things so that you can instantly kill anything or accidentally destroy your entire party. Or maybe you go in the direction where you have the more reliable things and so on. Like there's a lot of cool stuff that I can do with that. So I am excited to I'm excited with the direction that the game is going.
Yeah. Neat.
Yeah, that's
So
another big ramble.
when's the alpha release? What's up, dude? Can I get a key? Can I get a beta key? What's up?
Yeah, I will give you a beta key. I'll give everyone listening to this a beta key for this game that will not have beta keys.
Is this something that I mean, maybe not, this BlizzCon, but maybe, in a future BlizzCon, we can all kind of gather around the like Hilton table somewhere in the lobby and like play this game together?
Yeah, that'd actually be. So I'm hoping that by the end of the year, I will be able to start doing some like early testing of it.
Yeah.
And what I'll probably do is similar to what like Cards Against Humanity did, and I'll just be like, hey, I need some early testers for this game, so maybe I will end up with beta keys. I need some early testing for this game, so here you can download this PDF and print out, like go to Staples or something and get these cards printed out, and then you can play it that way. And my goal is to be at that stage by the end of the year. If I really seriously hardcore wanted to go after it, then I could probably do that. I could probably be in that case in a couple of months. I'm just setting myself a goal that I think is realistic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe I can try to have a like early version of the game, like with me at BlizzCon or something. That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah, that'd be great. And obviously, you have plenty of people that will want to play it, who will be down to try it out.
That's kind of part of what I'm hinging on as well. Is I will obviously want to do a ton of testing of this game at some point, just to make sure that it's good.
Yeah, no, totally. That makes sense. And I mean, also, I could imagine that. First off, world building that's going to take you a serious amount of time. There's a lot of questions you're going to have to ask yourself. You have to run it by somebody else, and they're going to have to ask you questions, and you're going to have to answer them. So there's a lot of stuff that you're going to have to make sense. I think the basic concept is cool, like really cool.
Yeah, and I recognize that it's hard to whenever I'm trying to explain certain bits of the game to people, everyone's always like, "Oh, yeah, that could be interesting. And part of me is terrified that it means that my idea isn't actually very good. But part of me is also saying, okay, this can't possibly be exciting because obviously no one has as complete a picture of the idea of what this game is like compared to me at this point. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for the update, sir.
No problem.
I would like to subscribe to your newsletter, etc.
Okay, my newsletter is at www. Dot.
Is that UH or UGH?
.com. I did actually set up a Twitter account for it, which is just Project Deck. I set that up a while ago. I'm not using anything on it at the moment, but if you want to follow that, twitter.com/Project Deck. At some point, that will become something more interesting. So if you want to toss that on your Twitter follows for when I eventually do use it for something, then that will be any big news that happens about the game will definitely come out there.
Awesome. Well, great. I'm following. All right, cool.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do today?
I'm probably gonna play some more Division.
Okay. I'm gonna go prep for GDC, I guess.
Cool.
Gotta do laundry.
I just got a new gun in the Division, so
I know. I almost didn't. We almost didn't have a show because of this fucking gun. This gun almost like killed the show entirely.
It's not even that exciting of a gun either. It was like a 10 DPS upgrade.
It's like in visualize mode. Let me spin this around a couple times. Wow.
Yeah. Dang.
No. Well, great. All right. Well, I'm gonna go do laundry and eat. I'm fucking starving. I should have eaten before this.
Yeah. Oh, we never did talk about the Dota stuff.
That's old news.
Yeah.
That
guy's
was
an ass.
That shit was cray.
We won't be discussing it again.
The end.